Hey everyone, this is Elenbaas from Nightlight Astrology. Happy Monday, everybody, and happy solar eclipse. Today we are going to take a look at the solar eclipse in Scorpio, which is coming through today, and we're going to take a look at it through all 12 sun and rising signs. So it's Horoscope Monday today. Tomorrow we are going to be taking a look at the meaning of the eclipse from an archetypal perspective. Today is horoscopes. Tomorrow is more of a deep dive into the particulars of this solar eclipse in Scorpio, the fact that it's with Venus in Scorpio, the fact that it's Mars ruled and Mars is about to turn retrograde, the follow up with the eclipse in Taurus. So we'll kind of unpack things from an archetypal perspective tomorrow. For today, it's horoscopes. So that's our agenda. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps the channel to grow. If you ever want to read what I've said on any given day, you can read the transcripts of any of my daily talks on my website, nightlightastrology.com. I'm also really excited to tell you about a class that a couple of my mentors are teaching called Unlocking the Mysteries of the Bhagavad Gita. It begins on November 5th, 2022, coming up. And excuse me, I'm going to take you over to their website, which is bhaktywise.com. You can learn more about it there. It's by donation. It's a 12-week course. It starts on November 5th. So if you are someone who maybe you like yoga, you like going to yoga classes, you're interested in the philosophy of yoga and learning about karma and the soul, this is one of my favorite texts, spiritual texts of all time. Of course, it had a major influence in my life over the past 5 years, especially as I was really deeply immersed in the Bhakti yoga world. You don't have to be like super serious yogi to take this class. It's just for people who want to learn a little bit more about the Bhagavad Gita. It's a really accessible class taught by two wonderful souls that I'm still very glad to be friends with. So check that out at bhaktywise.com. The other thing that I am alerting everybody to is the fact that my new course, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, is also coming up. That class begins on, hold on just a second, let me get it up on the screen here. Sorry, begins on November 12th. So you can find that on my website, nightlightastrology.com. Starts on November 12th. We have around 100 or so at the time of recording this. We've been 150, getting closer now to about 100 need-based scholarships left. So, and we still have some weeks to go before the start of class. So it's a good time to sign up while it's still there. It takes a few days to process need-based applications. So make sure you do it in advance. Over the course of the 12 months of this program, we study ancient horoscopic astrology, which means we learn how to read birth charts. And this is really good because it's helpful to be able to read your own, as well as those of the people you love, or if you're married or your kids. Really helpful tool, but also for people who might want to go professional. Generally speaking, I recommend that people take both my year 1 and 2 program if they want to become a professional astrologer. But either way, the year 1 program will really get people prepared for that kind of path. Hear what some of the alumni have had to say about it. I've got a video there you can check out. There are 30 classes on the year. You are attending them either live by webinar, or you can follow along with all of the recordings, which are uploaded to a class website, along with all of the bonus materials, suggested reading. There's a discussion forum where you can ask questions, and we have a paid staff that's there helping out. You can email me with questions. We have breakout study sessions in between major units. So if we spend 12 hours studying the ancient mystical rationale behind the houses and the house topics, then you have a whole day where you can come and ask questions about it in between. And those are recorded too, in case you can't make it. So people attend from all around the world, and they either take it at their own pace or they attend live, like along with the schedule. It's very flexible in that regard. If you have any questions about it, feel free to email us, info@nightlightastrology.com. Otherwise, at the bottom of the page, you'll see the early bird payment. That saves you $500 off, and it's a really good deal. You can stretch the payment out over the course of 12 months. That's also a really good idea for people who just want to have it a little bit more manageable for your budget. Finally, we have need-based tuition. That's what I was saying to start off with. We have a limited amount of these, and they are going quickly. So you have some time left to take advantage of them, but make sure that you do. The need-based tuition option is there for people if the price point is out of your reach and you're on a fixed income. We think it should be an investment to take a course, but we also don't think that investment has to look exactly the same for everyone, because we know that there are a lot of challenges financially in our world right now. And to me, the spiritual science lives on if we are generous with it and with how we teach it and make it available to other people. So we've always had that available for 13 years now. I've always had some form of need-based sliding scale or donation-based tuition for the programs that I teach. I've been teaching a version of this class for going on 13 years. Thousands of students have come through it. And we're really proud of the fact that we don't try to, no one's ever really priced out. So use that need-based tuition if it can help you. All right, well, it's time to get into horoscopes. We are going to say more about the eclipse tomorrow. Today, what we're going to do is spend time talking about where in your life, what topics you can expect to see the eclipse activating by means of your sun or rising sign. So tomorrow we will discuss what does it mean that this is a solar eclipse with Venus in Scorpio in the sign, that it's in a sign of Scorpio along with Venus and the South Node. What does it mean that it's ruled by Mars and Mars is about to turn retrograde, so on and so forth. So stay tuned, because I know some people will want a deep archetypal explanation of the eclipse. What does a solar eclipse mean compared to a lunar eclipse and all of that kind of stuff? We'll do that tomorrow. So good eclipse content this week. We're going to start with horoscopes. And whoops, I don't know, accidentally stopped sharing my screen. We're going to start with Aries here. And for each sign, we're going to give you a sense of what to expect based on the whole sign house placement of the eclipse in your birth chart. So this is going by whole sign houses. If you are an Aries rising, now you listen to sun sign horoscopes, this is this exact same thing. So whether you're a sun listening for your sun or rising sign, it falls in your 8th house as an Aries. Now, with this one in particular, especially with Venus in this house, we're thinking about new bonds that are forming, new codependencies that are forming, and that dependency or codependency. Dependency may be in a healthy sense, a new bond or a new relationship, some new form of an emotional resource that's becoming available to you in another person, or an ally, a friend, a business partner, a lover, someone or something that's coming into your life that you are forming a new bond with. Why? Because this is a new moon with Venus in the 8th house. So we're talking about the potential for new things, new moon, to form big changes too with a solar eclipse, and probably pertaining to relationships. Because Venus is there, the goddess of love. This could be, romantic relationships, sexual chemistry, and the exchange that happens creatively in our lives when we come to fall in love with other people. But also, sometimes we fall in lust with other people. And so temptations may appear to, this can be a very cathartic encounters that are maybe not long-lived, but powerful and transformative. So I would look at life-changing encounters with other people, new bonds forming, new allies being formed. But also sometimes, especially because Venus is in Scorpio, the kind of change that's indicated here could be a little heavy emotionally. It could be intense emotionally. You could also see, and that's also due to these planets being in a water sign. You see a little bit more emotionality in the water signs. So intense emotional encounters with other people, soul bonds, soul contracts forming. Sometimes with Scorpio, this is also because old ones are dying. So could this be the kind of thing where you're getting out of one relationship and into another, or you're leaving a relationship because you're becoming attracted to someone or something else? But I would also look at the kind of quid pro quo dynamic of Venus in the 8th house in Scorpio. I give you some, you scratch my back, I scratch yours. Now that could be, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe that's not such a good thing, but watch for this area of what is shared and what kinds of bonds are forming. And are they testing you or are they enhancing your life in some way? So pay attention to all of that. All right, let's move on to Taurus. We're going to put Taurus in the ascendant, which moves the eclipse into the 7th house. So what's interesting about this is whatever is forming here is landing in the house of love and relationships, and then Venus doubles down on the same themes. So we have the 7th house as a place of marriage, relationships, sexuality, pleasure. It was called Kama by Indian astrologers, and that is the word for pleasure, or a word for pleasure. And with Venus there, at the time of a new moon solar eclipse, you think about an evolution in a relationship. Maybe you are There's sexual healing that's happening, or greater or deeper sexual intimacy. Romance is sparking up. New relationships are forming. But also, I would look at what kinds of Venus presents us with desire, something that we love or want or crave, especially for the sake of pleasure. And when something like this comes, an eclipse like this forms with Venus in the seventh house, I also think about, be careful of what lusts are forming in the heart, desires that are unhealthy versus those that are, supportive and nurturing of your inner light and health. And it's not always easy to distinguish, because sometimes the things that are best for us are also a little scary. Some of the things that we are attracted to that we most need are going to be transformational and intense. And other times, it's like, be careful that you don't start dating someone who's drinks too much, or someone who you have intense physical chemistry with, but who is, has a violent temper or something like that. So there's an edge here around pleasure, lust, love, desire, attraction. And I think we have to walk the edge. Like it's a fine line we have to walk, that we're walking on the razor's edge. Don't, kind of like, don't cut your feet. So, but also I think transformation within existing relationships is a powerful theme as well. So those are some themes to watch for if you're a Taurus rising in particular. Let's go ahead and put Gemini on the ascendant and continue on. Now remember, eclipses don't happen all at once. It's not like on the day of an eclipse that something is going to happen. It's generally that things happen over the course of several months after an eclipse, up to even 6 months, especially if there are subsequent eclipses in the same signs still to come. So we're getting toward the tail end of our eclipses in Scorpio and Taurus. But nonetheless, we, this eclipse is still very powerful, and especially powerful because of the close conjunction with Venus that's there at the time of the eclipse. All right. Well, with Gemini, we are taking the eclipse energy, putting it into the 6th house, a place of conflict, a place of turmoil, a place of hard work, labor, selfless service, and sacrifice. When I look at this in the 6th house, like one of the images that pops up in my mind is the frustrations visited upon us in love. You have Venus in Scorpio, Venus in the sign of Mars, a new moon eclipse in the 6th. And I think to myself, this could be the starting of, say, the legal proceedings of a divorce. This could be about getting lawyers and starting to, work out who's going to get what when people are parting ways. So conflict around love and relationships is a very strong theme, a very real possibility for the new moon solar eclipse in the 6th with Venus. 6th house could also be about sexual health and healing. For example, you could equally see someone doing some therapy around, trauma experienced from sexual violence, or you could see someone perhaps dealing with like an STD. Different images that come up around in the house that is associated with trauma, violence, conflict, ill health, chronic health, injuries. So I would also look toward themes of like domestic abuse, blowouts in love and relationships, but also healing around love and relationships, as long as we are willing to admit or really look at the wound. I also think about serving something that is in service to the goddess or to women, and also things like therapy or trauma recovery, social work, things like that. I could see being a part of this eclipse as well. The other thing that comes to my mind would be any kind of damaged pride. The reason I say damaged pride is that Venus in this house could be like, here's a story. I remember when I was in graduate school, we were all hanging out, and there was a graduate student, international graduate student, who had never ever gotten like inebriated, but she'd never gotten drunk before. And she became intoxicated to the point where she got sick. And there was a whole group of us or whatever. We were all hanging out, and we took care of her and made sure she was okay. But I remember how ashamed she was, because it was like a really big no-no in the family she grew up in and everything. And we all had to, like, for a week really be like, hey, it's okay. It happens. And you don't have to ever drink that much again if you don't want to. We're just having, but I think of wounded or injured shame, wounded or injured pride and shame, for Venus in particular in this house, because Venus in this house could be recovering from some kind of injury or insult. These are all different kinds of things to consider, but also, what are we sacrificing or what are we serving on behalf of the goddess? And something new that's growing in sacrifice or service to Venus. So these are the kinds of themes that I would watch for if you're a Gemini rising. All right. Let's move along now to putting Cancer on the ascendant. Once we put Cancer on the ascendant, the eclipse energy is moving into the 5th house. Now, this place was called the joy of Venus and the house of good fortune. It's associated with whatever is pleasant or pleasing, which could include sex. It could include going out to dinner. It's associated with procreation, pregnancy, and children, but also with entertainment and joy. And even sports were sometimes associated with this place. You have an association with anything that is done for the sake of pleasure and fun. Now, this is also about the joy that is derived from being in alignment with who we are. So the joy derived from our dharma, for example. If you're being yourself, there should be a natural sense in which happiness, joy, spontaneity, playfulness are the byproducts. Even if you're a relatively more serious person, there should still be a sense of creative flow if the 5th house is doing well. And so I wonder for Cancers if this might not be about creativity, joy, pleasure. There's a new chapter opening up. Sometimes you're going to see pregnancies for Cancer risings. You're going to see shifts around your children, or meaningful changes around how you're raising your kids because of the topical connection to children. Things involving working with children, but also this is a house that has to do with the pursuit of pleasure and joy. And so with the new moon solar eclipse in Venus's sign in Scorpio, you're thinking, it's a little edgy. It's like, how do I pursue pleasure and joy in a way that's, it might be a little dark. There might be a kind of nocturnal, it's a little bit like, well, you know what? I have to admit to myself that I love horror movies, and I find them really entertaining. And so I'm going to go see a horror movie. Or it might be like, for the image, and I apologize if this is a little, like a little too sexual, but the image of a young person figuring out that they can pleasure themselves, whenever age someone figures that out. So the idea here, though, of like a blossoming around creativity, pleasure, joy, and how we experience those things, and with a little bit of an edge or a darkness to it. Now, you want to be careful about things growing in the 5th house that could be destructive. For example, addictions, or classic example in the 5th house would be gambling problems. Anything that's done for joy, like I'm going to Vegas, but ends up being just way too much or self-destructive, or lands you in rehab, that you want to be careful of those kinds of things growing out of an eclipse like this. But generally speaking, it's about pleasure. All right, let's go on to Leo, which, if we're Leo ascendant, then the eclipse is in the 4th. So the 4th house is the place of home and family. It's the place of ancestry, land, property, our living environment, specifically the father in ancient astrology, but both parents are frequently mentioned. So with an eclipse here, you're thinking about pretty deep level of transformation around home and family. A mom is marrying someone new. You have a stepdad suddenly in your life, or parents are getting a divorce. Now, a new moon solar eclipse, you would usually think about some pretty big changes around home and family, but often it's like a new moon. It's the planting of a new seed. With Venus there in Scorpio's sign, though, it could be that it's sowing seeds of discontent within family and marriage dynamics. You could also see moving or relocating as a big theme. Anytime there's a solar eclipse in the fourth house, that's a possibility. The other thing that would come to my mind would be that because Venus also represents sisters, there's maybe a possibility of some karma around siblings and sisters in particular coming up, or marriage of siblings in the family, extended family, things like that. You also see some way in which you are doing that work of healing the family or ancestral wounds. Maybe you're doing it alone. Maybe you're doing it in the context of a marriage, and you and a spouse are both looking at things stemming from the way you were raised. I could see those being themes as well. So watch for significant change around home, family, property, land, living environment. And then specifically, let's talk about like sisters, maybe siblings in general, but I would also look at the marriage dynamics within the family, larger family constellation, or your own immediate family. Okay, so that's, to me, those are the main things to watch for if you're a Leo rising. Let's go ahead and put Virgo on the ascendant next. This moves the eclipse into the third house. Now, among other things, the third house is associated with the mind and the way we think and perceive. And so a shift in our perception, a change of mind, an emphasis on learning something, on technology or communication. This is the house associated with siblings. And so once again, we could see karma related to siblings coming up, siblings and marriage with Venus in the third house, siblings and sisters with Venus in the third house. Also, the need to speak or communicate in a different way, a different manner, using a different medium. This could be the start of some new project in which communication or media itself plays a large role, like launching a blog, launching a podcast, very third housey. The other thing I would think about would be some change in the local environment. I'm like, for example, I'm learning a new language, or I'm moving to a different part of the world in which the local culture or environment is forcing me to change or adapt in some way. Those would be things to watch for as well. The other thing that comes to my mind here is about neighbors or neighborhood, or the environment around you changing in some dramatic fashion. Sometimes it implies also that there'll be some important travel going on, maybe some kind of trips or short journeys that you're making. Those are third house topics as well. But I like generally the idea of learning new things with the eclipse in the third house, and also the topic of a change of mind or perception, a different way of speaking, thinking, communicating, or perceiving, and one that's needed, one that maybe even has an impact on close or important relationships with Venus in that house right now. Let's put Libra on the ascendant and move along. With Libra on the ascendant, the eclipse is in the second house. Now, this is going to emphasize the topic of money, finances, whether it's your income or your expenditures. We're looking at the second house. And we are looking at the second house specifically here as a new moon with Venus comes through, maybe a new lucrative business opportunity, a new company, a new product, a new offering, promotion, a raise in your pay or salary, an investment that's important, or selling something. Could also be just a shift in financial approach. If you have a business, maybe it's like, I've got to hire an accountant. It could also be about what or who you rely on. For example, sometimes it's common to see people in the second house, if you have a therapist or a lawyer or an attorney, or people that you rely on as intimate, like counselors, or anything that you lean on heavily for a form of support, could be changing. Second house was associated not only with money and food and the things that we need to sort of prop up our biological existence, but also anyone that served as a very close support. So could you see some significant changes around that? And I think so. I think you could see some significant changes around who or what you rely on. And like I've seen, like eclipses in the second house literally mean that someone's personal, if they have a company, your personal assistant is going to change or something like that. So change of money, though, change around income and finances, shifting in that way. With Venus there, I like the idea that whatever's growing in a water sign, especially water in the second house, fertile, may take a little while to grow, being in a fixed sign, the change may come because of some strains or difficulties or intense things that are happening. But I'm optimistic with Venus there that in time, something positive can be growing and gestating around business and finances right now for Libras. So let's go forward to putting Scorpio in the first house. Now, if you're a Scorpio ascendant or Scorpio sun sign, you're listening for Scorpio sun sign horoscope, the eclipse falls in your first house, which is the place of your body, your character, and your identity. Your vitality and health belong to this house. Eclipses in this house, not going to lie, can change your life for the better, but through health crisis, and it doesn't have to be a major one. It can just be kind of a middling one or even a minor one. But just the way an eclipse in the first house works is often to call your attention to the need for a transformation of your appearance, a transformation of your body or physique, whether that means going to the gym, going on a diet, going and getting plastic surgery, or something as simple as changing your wardrobe. The idea, though, is that physically it implies a transformation. Sometimes that also happens because of health challenges. And of course, the psychology of the first house matters a great deal as well. So personal change. Who am I? Who am I becoming? And what does it have to do with my desires, my relationships, love, and sexuality? Those should all be pretty strong considerations right now for Scorpios as well. So psychological, existential change along the lines of Venus, naturally involved in love, sex, and relationships, physical changes, change of identity, appearance, physique, wardrobe, aesthetic. So it's a pretty, it's more existential for Scorpios than really any other sign. Let's go ahead and put Sagittarius on the ascendant. When Sag is on the ascendant, the eclipse falls into the 12th house. And to me, this is one of the more challenging places for eclipses. The 12th house is naturally a blind spot. It is what is growing in the shade or shadows that we can't see. And when the eclipse manifests here, it's often a sign that certain kind of karma that's been dormant is ready to blossom. And usually it's not the easy kind. It's something you're going to have to learn a lesson from. It's something you won't see coming right away that'll develop. Probably has something to do with love, relationships, allies, friends, who you can or can't trust. The subject of trustworthiness in general could be a theme. Gossip and loyalty. I also think about what we're attracted to and whether it's helping us or harming us. I also think about desire, lust, and the difference between honoring our desires and letting them run over us somehow to the point where we are not doing ourselves a favor. I also think about, for Sages, what's growing in this house could be some kind of broader relational discontent. A friend is stabbing you in the back, or a friendship is no longer healthy, or you're tired of being there for someone who's not there for you as much. So, but there's the unconscious dimension of the 12th house is moving, which means that you're going to start to see things over the next probably 4, 5, 6 months kind of cropping up that are really, think about Venus and Scorpio. They're sensual, they're deep, they're emotional, they're intense, they're cathartic, and they're not necessarily easy subjects to visit. Having to, look at our guilty pleasures and maybe let go of the guilt. Having to look at our guilty pleasures and maybe stop ignoring the guilt and pay attention because we're harming ourselves. But these are the subjects coming out through the 12th house. I would also think about wandering, am I getting sidetracked somehow by certain kinds of people or relationships? And how do I get back on course? So Sag rising is a little bit of an adventure ahead with this eclipse. Now, Capricorn rising or sun sign horoscope places the eclipse into the 11th house. place of friends, allies, groups, um, benefactors, anyone who could serve as like a colleague or a networking, like someone who may benefit you as an ally. So this house also pertains to groups, and an eclipse in this house would often mean a change or transition within an existing group, or meeting or getting involved in a new group, or it could suggest that there are just the social fabric of your life is changing in a very powerful way, sometimes through loss of certain kinds of friendships or allies, sometimes through the introduction of new allies. The Scorpio signature here suggests powerful, deep catharsis around your social life, groups, colleagues, networks of people, and where you feel like you fit in and where you don't. So watch for that landscape to be shifting around quite a bit in the months to come, specifically after this eclipse. Okay, so Aquarius is next. Aquarius places the eclipse into, if you're Aquarius sun or rising, the eclipse falls in your 10th house. Now, that is the place of your career. And so a new moon solar eclipse in this house will often indicate a new chapter in your career. It's not happening right away necessarily, but the seeds are being planted now, and expect that change to manifest in the months ahead. A new job, a new title, a change of direction. I was doing one profession, now I'm going to do another. Relationships in the workplace and what you're showing to the world, or how you present yourself to the world. So, for example, Venus in this house could mean that your advertising is going to change if you're a small business, or it could mean that your aesthetic or your color scheme or your website is going to be redesigned, or you're going to do a new photo shoot for your website. It could also mean that there's a new style, like a new Venus is presenting something new around career. Now, it could also be that you're trying to sell yourself or present something that is attractive, in other words, and you have to come up with, like why I said like marketing, because the idea of coming up with some way of selling what you're doing through images and trying to figure out what sells and what's attractive. That's probably important on a business level in the 10th house with the eclipse there with Venus. I could also see there being some emphasis on women. This eclipse could be about falling in love with someone in the workplace. You could also see this eclipse pertaining to relationship dynamics at work that are a little like poisonous or toxic. Venus and Scorpio can bring up drama in workplace relationships. So I would watch for those themes. But generally speaking, an eclipse and a solar eclipse in the 10th house to me suggests something brand new is about to form in the area of your career. So watch for that to play out. Now, remember, the 10th house is also just generally associated with the word praxis, which means action. So just like where's the action in the movie taking us? Like, what is the plot line about? And so a twist or turn in plot involving Venus may be close at hand, and it's going to, in the 10th, it'll impact every area of your life. So that's another way of looking at it outside of just strictly career. All right, Pisces in the 9th. So with the Pisces eclipse in the 9th house, last but not least, we're talking about a change of heart and mind and spirit, kind of all at once, because we're looking at the 9th house is naturally trine to the 1st house, and it has to do with the natives' convictions, beliefs, knowledge, wisdom. And so I like this as the Scorpio signature suggests to me a change of belief, a change of mind or attitude, or a doubling down on something, a deeper level of conviction about certain core beliefs that is emerging and leading you to make certain kinds of decisions. Teachers appearing in your life, going back to school or starting a new program, learning a new subject, potentially with the 9th house traveling abroad. There's also a call here, like this has the mark of a seeker. The eclipse appearing in this house suggests that my paradigm spiritually, politically, morally, or ethically, philosophically is needing to be transformed. And maybe because it's also looking at certain issues around Venus. Suddenly I need a nature-based or goddess-based or pagan spirituality. Suddenly I'm realizing that sex has to make more sense within my spiritual paradigm. Suddenly I'm being drawn to the poets rather than the philosophers as sources of wisdom. But watch for Venus, the wisdom of the goddess, to be there taking part in the transformation of the higher mind. I love this eclipse also in terms of there being like very provocative things that you're thinking about and that are occupying your mind and forcing you to maybe change the way you look at the world, or it's because your beliefs are changing that it's going to that change in beliefs may touch on any other area: relationships, home, where you're living, your health, your identity, your career, what kind of people you hang out with. So transformation of beliefs leads to a lot of other changes this month and the months ahead if you're a Pisces sun or rising. All right, well, I think we did a pretty good job working through all 12 whole sign houses based on your ascendant or sun sign. I would love to hear stories from you guys. What are you noticing or seeing already? Like I said, eclipses don't generally happen like all at once on the day of an eclipse. Just like a new moon, it has to play out. Moon cycles have to play out too. So, but nonetheless, I would still really like to hear your stories. So use the hashtag grabbed or email grabbed@nightlightastrology.com so that we can hear what you guys have to say about the planets and this eclipse and how it's showing up in your life. If don't share anything through that email address or through the hashtag grab that you do not want shared in a future storytelling episode. We never use your name in those episodes. And don't forget to like and subscribe if you haven't already. It really helps the channel to grow. We are getting close to 50,000 subscribers. What should we do when we get there? Should we have a dance party? Should we have some kind of giveaway, a sale? I don't know. I will take ideas. Give me your submission for what ought to happen when we reach 50,000 subscribers on the YouTube channel. In the meantime, don't forget, the new class, Ancient Astrology for the Modern Mystic, begins November 12th. Those need-based tuition scholarships are limited. They are going a little bit more quickly now, so be sure to sign up while there's still time for that. All right, that's what I've got. Hope you guys have a great eclipse today, and we'll talk to you again more about the eclipse tomorrow. Bye, everyone.